Welcome to Hardwood Handicappers with Zach Cohen, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Zachary Cohen, VSiN.com senior editor with a Tuesday episode of Hardwood Handicappers. Today is March 10th. We are recording this at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. We did go 3-0 last night, so that was really nice. Needed one of those types of nights, and hopefully we could build on it this evening. And we do have a bunch of picks to get into for tonight. And I also want to talk a little bit at the end about what we saw in last night's, Nuggets Thunder game and what else we saw around the association, because there were betting implications, there were long-term implications, there were just regular basketball implications. It was a big night of NBA action, a really fun night of NBA action. But yeah, let's get into tonight. Let's start off by talking kind of about, the tanking parlays that we've been talking about, pretty much every single day. It's been a big staple on our VSiN network. If you are a VSiN pro or just have the VSiN network, as part of the Sports Plus package on YouTube TV, you'll see all my colleagues talking about it. I think Gil-Alexander refers to this time of the year as Take-a-Palooza and calls these parlays the brain dead parlays, but they have been profitable, fading the teams that are tanking to try to get into the top three of this loaded draft class has been, a profitable, proposition for bettors this season. So it's something that I think we need to just kind of embrace rather than ignore. I know that a lot of people don't really like big money line parlays, but as long as these keep winning, I think that it's worth, going to them. And we didn't have the opportunity to do it last night because it was a very short slate, but tonight, completely different story. There's a bunch of options on the board when talking about, decent teams or playoff teams playing against some of the tanking teams. And here are the four that I think match that. It's the Hawks facing the Mavericks, Pistons facing the Nets, Heat facing the Wizards, and Warriors facing the Bulls. And I think that the interesting ones there are the Pistons and the Nets, because the Nets did beat the Pistons last game. Cade Cunningham did not play in that one, but it did ruin one of these parlays. So maybe, have your antennas up. But I do think because Detroit lost last time to Brooklyn, they're going to come out and absolutely stomp them, especially because the Pistons have been on a losing streak. This is the perfect kind of get right opportunity for them. They're going to come out and smash them. And the other game that I think I'm a little bit nervous about when you're just kind of looking at these system matches or whatever you want to call it, the Warriors are playing their third game in 4 nights and the second leg of a back-to-back. So fatigue is always going to be a factor. And the Bulls, I do think, play a little bit harder than some of these other teams. But I do think that Golden State, playing at home, should be able to find a way to get the job done. So I think these 4 teams in a parlay make a lot of sense. You could get this at plus 117 at Bet365 as of this recording. I mean, it is, like I said, we're recording at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. By the time you listen to this, things could change a little bit. That's always going to happen. These lines move very, very quickly. So you can probably find plus 117, but at the very least, you can find plus money odds on this parlay, and I think it's worth it. By the way, that Bulls-Warriors game, it is in Golden State, so they at least have home court advantage. And I do think this team, even without Curry, they've been playing hard. They've been playing very well defensively, and just kind of depends on the night in terms of what the offense looks like. But there are nights where they do have some juice. So I think this is a game that they're going to win. So I do think this is a good, viable option when you're looking for plays for this Tuesday night slate. I will say, though, there's a ton of games this evening. So if you don't love this, you don't have to put it in. But I am personally taking it. And I'm probably going to try to take these every single night when there are clear matches for ways to do it. Because so far, I should look this up, but I believe I'm 4-2 with these ever since I started doing them. I'm sure, Gil-Alexander, the host of a numbers game, doing a little bit better because he started a little bit earlier. And these teams that are in the bottom 10 of the NBA at one point were on a 44 game combined losing streak. So had to have been profitable before I started and jumped on, but has been also profitable since I did. So I really like the idea of going to these and taking advantage of these teams that are, driving Adam Silver crazy. All right, let's move on now to the Raptors at the Rockets. This is a game that tips at 8:10 p.m. Eastern, and I'm taking the Rockets money line in this one, parlayed with the Blazers on an alternate spread of plus 10.5 versus the Hornets, which is a game that's going to be played at 10 p.m. Eastern in Portland. So looping these two games together, and I'll talk a little bit about both them here, and I won't talk about the other one later. So with Houston, it's really just a matter of the Raptors and the Rockets are both excellent defensive teams. If you look at adjusted net rating, adjusted defensive rating over at Dunks and Threes, which is my favorite kind of catch-all metric website. Both these teams are top 6 defensively, but the big difference between these teams is that Houston is 8th in the NBA in adjusted offensive rating. Toronto is just 19th. And I do think that the size of these teams and just the size that the Rockets have in general is going to be a problem for the Raptors, because this Toronto team under Darko Rajakovic, who I think is a great coach, just 5-34 straight up when facing opponents that out-rebound their opponents by 3 or more rebounds per game. And we know that this Houston team is just kind of relentless on the glass. Even with Steven Adams out for the season, this team has kind of remained, big and tough inside. Maybe not to the extent that they were when they had Adams. And I think that that's a big part of the reason you've seen a drop off on this team in terms of just kind of like being a top tier team in the West and now being one of the middling teams in the West. But they still are pretty strong, when it comes to, battling on the glass. And I think that at the center position specifically for Toronto, that's a problem. This Raptors team, I think, is really, really looking to upgrade that spot in the offseason. They tried very hard at the deadline to do it. Jakob Poeltl's a player I've always really kind of liked, but I think that on his current contract, he's a negative, and I don't think that they have a lot of depth at the center position. So I do think that the battle inside is going to lean Houston. And just overall, under Rajakovic, this Raptors team is just 26-63 straight up as a road underdog. Meanwhile, under Ime Udoka, the Rockets are 63-22 straight up as home favorites. So, Houston's very good and reliable when playing as a home favorite. Toronto, not very good as a road underdog. Everything kind of lines up for the Rockets in this game. And just on top of that, I think that Houston is in a situation where they're looking to win just because, they've been getting clowned a little bit lately. This is a spot where, like, you're talking about a Raptors team that has a very good scoring wing in Brandon Ingram, but the Rockets have one of the best ones in the world in Kevin Durant. I just feel like everything that Houston does is just a little bit better and a little bit sharper than Toronto. And I think that that's going to make the difference with this game being played in Houston. And then the other game, the Blazers hosting the Hornets who have been scorching hot, at least until they lost to the Suns in Phoenix the other night, and especially hot on the road. I still think this is a game that's going to be really tough for them to win. I actually had a lean on Portland at +3.5 and really wouldn't mind anybody that decides to play that normal spread. I think that this is a game the Blazers could win outright, but I did want a little bit of extra cushion. I knew that I wanted the Rockets money line and not spread, so made a lot of sense to pair these two. It's -105 for the parlay. Portland, I just think like you're getting Denny Avdia back tonight. This team is now very healthy outside of Shaedon Sharpe being out and Damian Lillard, who's like in a gap year. This team is healthy, and I think this is a team that's very tough to beat in Portland. They are rock solid defensively. They have on-ball creators, especially now that, Scoot Henderson's starting to look a little bit better, had 28 points and 6 assists last game. I think that, people have been getting on him as well, because he had 2 bad games ever since he returned from his lengthy injury layoff, but he had been playing really well before that, bounced back from the 2 games to have his best game of the season with 28 and 6 against the Pacers. I just think overall, like, he's looked pretty solid since returning from his injury. I don't think that people should be getting on him too much, but overall, I think that this backcourt has looked a little bit more explosive offensively, especially with Drew Holiday playing a little bit better. And I do think that this matchup is interesting because you do have Holiday out there, a very good defensive player to guard either LaMelo Ball or Con Knipple. And I think that that's going to be very beneficial for Portland as a good defensive team. Then you also have Tamani Kamara to guard Brandon Miller. And then on the inside, I really like Donovan Clingan to kind of hold his own and maybe even win the matchup with Moussa Diabate. So I just think this is a really tough matchup for the Blazers. I think Portland's going to bounce back. Charlotte's going to bounce back very soon, but do think that this is a game that they could potentially lose outright. But at the very worst, I really don't see them completely blowing the Blazers out. That's why I like the 10.5 on the alternate. So it's Rockets money line versus the Raptors and Blazers plus 10.5 versus the Hornets. And as I said, -105 for that parlay. Let's move on now to the Suns at the Bucks, a game that gives me a little bit of PTSD because the Suns lost to the Bucks in the NBA Finals, blew that 2-0 lead in that series and lost 4 straight games. Man, it was really tough. But going back into that building tonight, Giannis will be on the floor. I think that there is definitely an interesting situation shaping up here because I think the Suns are going to be a public side in this game, and I generally like to avoid public sides, but I couldn't do it here. I think that the Suns money line minus 115, just way too tempting. The Suns are 1.5 point favorites in this game, by the way. Totals 217.5, tips at 8:10 p.m. Eastern. I just kind of think that if you look at what these two teams have given you recently and you look at the rest spots, it's really hard not to just think that Phoenix is a few points better than Milwaukee and that this line is a little bit off. The Suns did not play last night. Rest spot is decent for them. The Bucks are playing their third game in 4 nights, and Giannis might be out there, but Kevin Porter Jr. won't be. And I think that that's going to be really big in this game because Phoenix has a good defensive backcourt, and it might get a little bit better tonight because Jordan Goodwin is questionable for the Suns, and Goodwin has been like an all-NBA caliber defensive player this season. So when he's out there, he goes out and hounds the opposing guards, whether that's Ryan Rollins or somebody else. Like, he's going to be able to make life difficult on them if he plays tonight. But either way, I think that this injury report looks kind of worse for Milwaukee than it does Phoenix, even though the Suns do have Mark Williams missing, Grayson Allen potentially missing, Dylan Brooks out. I just think that this is a Bucks team that's not talented enough to be without a player like Kevin Porter Jr. And you might get Taurean Prince back tonight if you're Milwaukee, and that definitely could be a boost because I've said it all year. Like, I'm a little bit higher on this Bucks team than most people are, but their wing situation is atrocious. Next to Giannis Antetokounmpo, obviously they have one of the best wings in the world, but next to him, it's really ugly. So bringing Prince back, a guy that can knock down some threes, has some length on defense, has some size overall, could be really good for them, but he's only questionable for tonight, not guaranteed to play, and he's coming back from a very, very serious injury, very lengthy absence, and not sure you could just count on him to play very well. This is also a Phoenix team that is 10-1 straight up and 9-1-1 against the spread as a road favorite under Jordan Ott. So when this team is expected to win, they tend to do it. And I just think that overall, like, talked about this a little bit with the Suns, but I think you know that they're going to play hard every night. Even with Brooks out, I think the identity of this team is set. Brooks will be on the bench barking anyway and, trying to get the guys, up and ready to play some defense. But I just really like what we've seen from Phoenix over the last couple of games, especially with some of the young players. Like, Devin Booker's continued to play well. Everybody that you could expect to play well is doing so. Jalen Green's even starting to get a little bit better in this Phoenix, offense, just getting a little bit more comfortable. The shots aren't really falling yet. Those are going to come, though. It's only a matter of time. He's a good shooter. But, like, what Rasheer Fleming has given them on the wing, a rookie second-round pick that probably should have gone in the first round, but just, a 6'9" player with, like, a 7'5" wingspan, really good defensively, really sturdy, probably going to guard Giannis a little bit in this game, and maybe he gets, in some foul trouble, but I do think he's going to be able to do a decent job on Giannis, at least better than most of the players in this team will be able to do. Maybe Ryan Dunn will do, a decent job as well, but Fleming has been so good as like a 3-and-D guy, and then Kamal Malawach off the bench has given them good center minutes, so the center pairing of like Oso Ighodaro and Malawach has not been, a negative. So the Mark Williams injury hasn't been killing them. I just think Phoenix is playing well, over the last couple games. And I do think that they're just a much better team than Milwaukee. So minus 115 for the money line. Sign me up for one unit. If I lose this, I lose this. I understand that there are going to be sharp bettors on the Bucks, but sometimes those sharp bettors lose as well. And I think this could be one of those spots where they do. But yeah, I think the Phoenix wins this game. If you're looking to sharpen your edge this NBA season, VSiN Pro is where to start. Get advanced analytics, player prop projections, and expert insights used by serious bettors every day. Try it out for only $9.99 for your first month and see what smart bettors are using to beat the books. Head to vsin.com/subscribe and check out all of our subscription options. I keep saying it. I think this is the best time of the year to join. We have so much college basketball on the website right now. It's insane. Wrote up every single conference tournament between myself and managing editor Adam Burke. We have picks and write-ups and previews for every one of those. So there's still a few starting over the next couple of days. So you could jump on our futures. I hit Northern Iowa. I'm really happy about that in the Missouri Valley. Hopefully we have a few more winners. But yeah, this is a great time to take advantage of 30 days because you're getting this. You're getting March Madness. You're getting some MLB. You're getting all my NBA. You're getting my tennis. Getting everything from everybody else. All my colleagues do great work. So awesome time to just take advantage of a $9.99 offer that gets you, access to VSiN at the best time of the sports calendar. Okay, let's move on now to what I believe is the game of the night. It's the Celtics at the Spurs, 8 p.m. Eastern tip. The Spurs are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Totals 222.5. And I don't have a play on a side or the total in this game. I have a lean on San Antonio, and I will potentially look to back the Spurs in parlays. Like if I, see some other plays I like throughout the day, and I'm looking for something that I need to throw in there to maybe get a plus money price on a parlay, I will look to the Spurs side. I think that the Spurs money line, you just kind of look at what these teams have done since like January 1st. I wrote about this actually in the VSiN newsletter last night for this morning, but San Antonio has been the number one team in the league in efficiency differential since the start of 2026. And Boston's third, so Boston's been very good as well. But the Spurs have had a little edge. They're playing at home in this game. And I do just kind of think that, like, Tatum, while he has been fine, and, Boston has looked good with him in the lineup, I do think that there's a little bit of a learning curve there, which is kind of getting him up to speed for a matchup like this with like one of the elite teams in the NBA. I really just think that like this is a game where the offense could look a little bit uglier than you expect against a good Spurs defensive team. And then defensively, Boston's been excellent. So really nothing to pick out there. But San Antonio is a really good offensive team with guards that can get into the paint at will. Wemby, you can create a shot against anyone. Just kind of think that this is a game where the Spurs look like the right side. I wouldn't, be against laying 3.5. I would probably wait just because you're seeing Celtics plus 3.5 juiced a little bit. So maybe it moves down to 3 and you can get a 2.5 or something at a better price. But I do think that the Spurs win this game. But the play that I like is Julian Champagnie over 9.5 points at minus 123. Champagnie's been a favorite of mine on the player prop market this season because he's always kind of priced around 9.5 or 10.5. And this is a guy that could really get hot from deep. And you look at the last couple of weeks, over the last 8 games, actually, he's had 10 plus points in 7 of those contests. There's no Harrison Barnes again for San Antonio. So that opens up some minutes and opportunity for Champagnie on the wing. And he's playing 27.8 minutes per game this season when Barnes does not play, 14.3 points per game in those games. So well above this total of 9.5. And I just said that this Boston defense has been good, and they have been. But one of the things that they do is they do allow teams to take some threes. And I do think that Champagnie is going to be a beneficiary of that. I think that you look at some of the numbers this year, Boston is 29th in the NBA defending above the break threes. Champagnie scores 49% of his points from that area of the floor, those areas of the floor, really. But the non-corners, Champagnie is a lethal shooter. And if he's going to get a couple of quality looks from deep in this game, he's going to knock down 2 or 3 threes and put a huge dent in this number right off the bat. And also Boston, bottom 10 team in the league defensively when it comes to guarding catch and shoot jumpers overall. Champagnie scores 70% of his jumpers on catch and shoot opportunities. So I just kind of think there's an opportunity for him to take advantage of a Celtics team that falls asleep or sends too much attention at the guards or something. Maybe it's Champagnie that's covered by Tatum, and Tatum has looked a little bit slow off the balls defensively, ever since he came back. I just think this is a really good game for him because I think he's going to knock down 2 or 3 triples and, do a little bit of work in transition, maybe score a bucket as a cutter or something. But yeah, I think this is a game where Champagnie maybe scores 15 points. So 9.5, definitely reasonable. I probably would have taken this at 10.5 too, but as of the time that I'm recording this, that's not necessary. There's multiple spots with 9.5. Let's move on now to another game that I think, was it right there with the Spurs and Celtics when it comes to game of the night. And this is the last game that I want to hit on before we kind of move to recapping what happened last night. But it's the Timberwolves at the Lakers. Game tips at 11 p.m. Eastern. So this is the later of the 2 Peacock NBC games. And, we've been getting these late tips on that network, but no complaints here because I'm on the West Coast and I don't mind staying up. I've been absolutely loving the presentation of both the prime games and the NBC games. Like, they've been doing such a good job making all these games feel absolutely huge. But Timberwolves going to LA, the Lakers are 2.5-point home underdogs. Totals 233.5. And I do kind of think that this is a spot where people are going to look to back the Lakers because Los Angeles just had that, pretty impressive win over New York in the Sunday kind of like matinee game that, I think a lot of people had eyeballs on. Lakers played very well in that game with no LeBron, moved to 9-2 without LeBron on the season, at least 9-2 when both Reeves and Luka are on the floor without LeBron. And LeBron is questionable this evening. So maybe he's out and people view that as a good thing. But either way, I think that the Lakers did enough against the Knicks to make them a buy for the public against a Timberwolves team that has been a little bit disappointing lately. Definitely disappointing to me, even though their record suggests that they're still really strong. They lose a lot of games that they should not lose, but I still think Minnesota is a team that you can trust against kind of big brands and good teams. I mean, these are the games that they get up for. And this Timberwolves team is coming off 2 full days of rest. Lakers only played on Sunday, so they only have 1 day of rest. That's a rest advantage for the visitor in this game. And overall, I just think this is going to be very similar to what we saw in last year's playoff series where Minnesota just absolutely pounded Los Angeles. And I think that the real thing that you look at with this matchup and why I think it's so good for the Timberwolves is because Minnesota is one of the few teams in the NBA that has like physical on-ball options that are not afraid of like Austin Reeves or Luka Doncic. They'll get after them. They'll get up in their face, and there's help behind in Rudy Gobert to make sure that, if these guys break down the first line of defense, it's nothing easy at the basket. I just love the way that the Timberwolves defend for this Lakers team. And then on the other end of the floor, Minnesota, a team that can be very shaky offensively, looks incredible against this bad Los Angeles defense. I think there's no answer for Ant when you look up and down the Lakers lineup. I think the Ant's going to have a huge game tonight. I think there's really no answer for Julius Randle either. Like, Randle is a guy that other teams have been successful in slowing down occasionally, but I don't think that the Lakers can do it. Like, they don't have a big, powerful 4 on the roster. They don't have an elite rim protector. Like, I just think this is a really good matchup for him. So I think this is going to be very similar to the playoff series last year where the Timberwolves just look like, men playing against boys. And I think that this is going to be a game that they win somewhat comfortably. This is my biggest play on the card for tonight. It's the only play that I have to win 1.5 units as opposed to 1 unit. And I feel really good about it. If it loses, it happens. But I do think that Minnesota showed enough in last year's playoffs. They've showed enough this season, and they have the rest advantage to the point that I feel good about putting a bigger play on them. So Timberwolves money line -120 to win 1.5 units is the way that I played this one. And that wraps up the plays that I have for tonight. But I do want to talk a little bit about what we saw last night, and I'll recap the best bets in a bit here. But it was a huge night in the association, really because of just the one game between the Nuggets and the Thunder, which was fantastic. I mean, both teams had guys missing. Denver was without Peyton Watson again. Oklahoma City was missing Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso, Jalen Williams, one more that I'm forgetting, but it was another lopsided injury report. And I think that it was really impressive that the Thunder were able to find a way to win that game. And they were actually in control of the game for a pretty good chunk of it. I mean, if you looked at ESPN's numbers, I believe it was 52% of the game they had the lead, 37% of the game the Nuggets had the lead. So OKC was in control, and they were in control late. And if it weren't for a boneheaded play from Jalen Williams, the bigger of the two Jalen Williams, they would have won the game pretty comfortably. But with, I want to say 13 seconds left, maybe a little bit more, they were up 4 points, and the Joker went up to take a three. Jalen Williams lunged out at Jamal Murray, fouled him off the ball. Jokic's three went in, and Murray got to go to the line. So they ended up tying the game, 4-point play, unconventional 4-point play because it wasn't the Joker that got to take the free throw. It was Murray, but tied the game up, forced OKC to come up with the goods late in the game. And of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the reigning MVP, hits a step back three to win the game. And it ended up being a game where the Nuggets covered. They covered whether you had the 7.5 that I gave out on the show earlier in the morning when I thought that, Murray was questionable and some of the guys on the Thunder might end up playing, but ended up being very, very favorable injury report for the Nuggets. Spread went down to 3.5. So Denver still ended up covering, but it was a really impressive win for OKC to do that shorthanded. And it was a game that I think was a little concerning for the Nuggets. I mean, I still think the Nuggets are going to win the title. That's my pick to win it all, but it's starting to get like just weird what's happening with Cam Johnson. I mean, 6 points in 23 minutes, 1 for 5 from the floor, 1 for 3 from three. I mean, the guy's just not shooting the basketball. And I feel like at some point, David Adelman's just going to need to drill it into him. Like, if you're open, shoot. Even if you're not open, shoot. Like, this guy just needs to be more comfortable within the flow of this offense than he has been to start the year. Johnson, I mean, maybe still feeling the effects of an injury, maybe still not comfortable in the offense, but he's just such a good player and good shooter that I just can't imagine like his teammates being upset if he's taking jumpers. So I feel like they just need to get it in his head that like the rest of the way, he needs to be a little bit more aggressive and a little more trigger happy from deep, because that's going to make the defenses just respect everything else a little bit more. And like they invested a lot to get him. It's like, I know they wanted to get off the Michael Porter Jr. contract, but they gave up a first round pick to do so. And like everyone in the world, like myself included, thought that Johnson was going to be a perfect fit with this team. It's been ugly. And like, I just don't know what they're going to do with him. So far, like it's been nice seeing Tim Hardaway Jr. play pretty well, off of the Joker and Jamal Murray. But like, if Johnson doesn't figure this out in the final 20 games or so, it's going to be hard for Denver to kind of achieve the goals that they have for themselves, which is to go on and win the NBA title. There's no reason this team can't do it. We see it whenever they face the Thunder. These games are always close. These teams went to 7 games last year when Denver was banged up and just not nearly as good as they are this year when you just kind of look at the talent on the roster. So I think that that's something that I'm keeping an eye on over the next 20 games, is that it is just the Johnson thing. I feel like this team is starting to get healthy. Aaron Gordon's back. He played really well last night. You're going to get Peyton Watson back soon. Everybody's pretty much healthy for this team. So let's see if, they can get Johnson up to speed and comfortable and looking like an actual starter for this team, because it hasn't been the case this season. He has not been good. And last night it was really kind of sticking out to me just how little he was doing. Another thing in this game, and really the big thing with this game, is obviously the Thunder won, but it was just a regular season game. It doesn't really mean much for the postseason. What did kind of stick out and what did matter for bettors and for the big picture in the NBA is SGA kind of outdueled the Joker. I mean, Joker played it fantastic. He had 32 points, 14 rebounds, 12 assists, but SGA finished with 35 points and 15 assists, and he hit the game winner in that game. As I said, OKC was also shorthanded in that contest, so it was a Herculean effort from SGA in a lot of ways, but hitting the game winner and actually hitting another really clutch three a little bit earlier, he was just so good when OKC needed him to be. And that's why you saw a big movement in the MVP market. He went from minus 310 to minus 800 at DraftKings from before the game to after the game. And I actually think he's moved a little bit more since then. No, okay, minus 800 at DK, but 91% now at Parlay market. So it's just like, it's starting to look like a wrap. It's starting to really look like SGA is moving towards his second MVP in a row. And I don't know how you could really argue with it. I think that is going to be the deserving winner this year, because like I've talked about it a little bit this year. I think Joker is still the best player on the planet, but now all of a sudden you look at the standings and it's OKC at number 1 in the Western Conference. They're 51-15. Denver's actually not even safe from being in the play-in tournament. They're 39-26. Joker's missed a lot of time with injuries. I've said it before, availability is huge when you're talking about the most valuable player in the league. So it's not really the Joker's fault that he got injured, but it is kind of big that SGA's played a little bit more, been a little bit better in the time he's been on the floor, and his team has just been so much better. So I don't know like how you could really make the argument for the Joker anymore, especially after last night. I think that was a wrap on the award market for, the biggest award that there is. So that was a big takeaway from last night. We'll also quickly say Clippers pick up a really impressive win over the Knicks. Now back to 500 on the season. Still some work to do to get my over 45.5 win for the win total, but we'll say while I'm going to lose that play, I think I'm going to lose that play. They've been really, really tough for like 2 months now, and they've been just fine ever since they moved Harden to the Cavaliers. I thought Garland played really well against the Knicks last night. And overall, like, Kawhi has enough help offensively. The team is still really good defensively. I would just say that this is still a team that, like, I don't think anybody wants to face in the postseason, even with the big changes that they made in shipping out Harden, shipping out Zubac. I still think this is a team that is tough. They have Kawhi playing at the peak of his powers right now. It's just a team that's very, very dangerous, if you ask me. I think that they're the 8th seed, so would be in the 7-8 game against my Suns. That would be a scary game. But yeah, I just think that there's some dangerous teams in this play-in, and it's the 2 teams in 7 and 8 right now, the Suns and the Clippers. currently the top 2 teams in the play-in. Warriors are 9, Blazers are 10. Don't think anybody's really worried about facing either one of those teams. So yeah, it's interesting. We'll see if this kind of shakes out this way the rest of the year. These end up being the 2 teams that are in the 7-8 game. But I do think these are the teams that I would like to see in the postseason, not just because I'm a Suns fan, but I think everybody would like to see the 2 best teams in the West get in. And those are the Suns and the Clippers, 2 best teams in the play-in. I mean, but yeah, it's been a really nice run for Los Angeles. 6-4 in the last 10. Like I said, very good defensively. Kawhi playing well, but now, a couple really good wins in a row over good teams. And that Knicks team may have been coming off, a loss against the Lakers that they probably should have won, but they have been great since January 15th, both ends of the floor in New York. So that was a big win for Los Angeles and a fun game as well. I mean, it followed up Nuggets Thunder, so definitely didn't have the same drama and energy, but I enjoyed watching the game. And hopefully tonight's doubleheader is a little bit better. But before we recap our best bets and get you out of here, attention to any listeners who are new to VSiN. Signing up for our free daily newsletter is a great way to catch up. Delivered straight to your inbox every morning, VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, and strategies for the day's betting menu. Sign up for free now at vsin.com/newsletter and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That's vsin.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. I mentioned it. I've been doing a little bit more writing for the newsletter, supplying Bill AD, my boss, who does a great job with the newsletter, with just like an NBA section every single day, because it is, really NBA season right now. It's really basketball season overall. We finally are having our moment after a long year of talking about the NFL and college football. Finally our time for a little bit. But all right, let's recap our Tuesday night best bets. Like I said, we went 3-0 last night. Not expecting another sweep tonight, but I would love to go 3-2 or 4-1. It would be just awesome to get back up to, around 7-8 units on the season and then have some really good futures pending. So been a good year overall, but any really bad night can change that. We've had nights this year where we've dipped below 500 on the season. We've gone way up, but hopefully we can, find some consistency the rest of the year. And we start tonight with the brain dead parlay is what we call it. Hawks money line versus the Mavericks, Pistons money line versus the Nets, Heat money line versus the Wizards, Warriors money line versus the Bulls, and that's plus 117. We have the other parlay with the Rockets money line versus the Raptors and Blazers alternate plus 10.5 versus the Hornets at minus 105. I have the Suns money line at minus 115 versus the Bucks. My only player prop of the night for now, Julian Champagnie over 9.5 points, minus 123 versus the Celtics. Then I have the Timberwolves money line minus 120 to win 1.5 units versus the Lakers. Those 5 picks for me right now. I will have write-ups up on vsin.com. I might add a player prop or 2. We will see. Can't make any guarantees, but I will dive back into everything a little bit earlier in the afternoon and see if there's anything that really sticks out to me as potential ads on player props, because I do like to have a little bit more than just one, but not going to force anything. So I'll take a look later. But as of right now, we have these 5 picks. Good luck if you are tailing me, and make sure you join us on a Wednesday episode of Hardwood Handicappers. And if you enjoyed this show, please like, subscribe, review it, whatever you can do to help us out, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We appreciate any feedback, especially if it's positive.